Good morning, everybody. I don't know if anyone can hear me in the back of the room, but it should be okay. Perfect. So in case Adam was just talking now about the CTF, in case you have any questions about the CTF, reach out to him, reach out to me, or reach out to anyone in the front row. We can help you with any questions you have about that. Having said that, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to be successful in the Azure Bug Bounty program, what Azure is exactly, what are the highest payouts which we have had in the past, and so on, and some of the most juicy bugs we've seen along the way. My name is Michael Hendrickx. The funny spelling of my last name tells you I'm not native from Goa. I'm from Belgium. I'm a security engineer from Microsoft. In fact, I'm a senior security engineer for Microsoft, but that just explains how old I am. My Twitter handle is underneath. Reach out to follow me, whatever you want. So the agenda today, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about the attack surface of Azure, what Azure is exactly. We're going to talk about the background of the bug bounty program that we had. We're going to talk about past payouts which we had for bugs, the scope, which type of bugs are within the scope and which are not. And then we'll explain you a little bit how to get started and how to get cracking on this bug bounty program. So the Azure attack surface, with a show of hands, who doesn't know what Azure is? Good, one person. Our marketing team is not that bad then. In the end, Azure, it's the Microsoft cloud, right? And it's not a copy of anyone else, of course. It's a little bit more than that. It's not just a website to spin up VMs. And if you see from an attack surface, it's relatively complicated. When I joined Microsoft, and I'm still struggling with all the abbreviations, there's a lot of interactions with it. So in the center, you have this Microsoft Azure. On the left, you can see different ways you can interact with it. There's a PowerShell window over there. There's Visual Studio. There's two different portals to talk to Azure. And on the right, you can see it talks to data centers and all these things as well. But there's a lot more to it. For example, we have storage somewhere along the way as well. Office 365 uses file storage, blob storage, table storage, which is all hosted on Azure. After that, we have things like federated identity. If you have your Active Directory on premises in your own data center, you can sync it with Azure. And don't worry, I'm not going to explain what it does per se. This isn't a marketing talk. We have things such as virtual networks. You can extend your own network to the cloud. You have things like multiple tenants in there, obviously. We don't just have one customer, luckily. You have things where you can deploy applications. Any applications you can deploy are web applications, mobile applications, but also worker roles, which are sort of a little bit like cron jobs in Unix. And the list keeps on going. We can obviously spin up VMs in Azure. We have something called the VM Marketplace, so it's not just Linux boxes and Windows boxes. You can actually download the web application firewall images and run them in the cloud as a virtualized image. So the list goes on and on. We have on-prem applications that you can publish in the cloud. You have SQL databases, obviously, one of our flagship products. We have no SQL databases. We have caching, such as Redis caches and so on. You have user management, and the list goes on and on. I don't know which one came now. You have extra gateways to connect your data center to the cloud and so on. You have load balancing in there. You have network security groups, which are sort of like virtual firewalls. There are user self-services in case somebody forgets their password or their account is locked out. Then they won't be calling you at 3 a.m. if you're a sysadmin. On top of that, you have multi-factor authentication, obviously. We have scale sets whereby with normal scripts, whether it's in PowerShell or in Python or anything, you can manage up to tens or thousands of VMs all at once. Load balancing is there, there's backup, obviously, if you want to send data to the cloud. We have a CDN, you have media services, and so on. And before I fill up this slide with all different words that are there, the feeling what you probably get and the feeling I still have after working in Microsoft and working in Azure is pretty much what is this thing all about? It talks to storage, it talks to databases, it talks to a lot of things. And it's not just because Azure is complex. From an attacker's point of view, from an offensive security point of view, it means there's a relatively big attack surface as well. You have Azure as a very abstract thing. You have a few portals talking to it, a few scripts. It talks to hundreds of other things. It's very complex, which makes it interesting to attack. So what we noticed, when you have such a complex beast, in fact, it would be a handy thing to make that subject to a bug bounty. So in April 2015, we started this bug bounty program to be included with the other ones that we have, to give our customers as well as the research community a way to find vulnerabilities and a way to reach out to us. We've expanded the bounty ever since. We have a little over 50 domains included in this. And here you see a few headlines that a researcher made some money, $24,000 in finding bugs. But we'll talk about bugs specifically. In terms of a timeline, what you can see is that Microsoft had the mitigation bypass bounty started in June 2013. Half a year later, we opened it up to Office 365 as well. And half a year later after that, we also opened it up to Azure. As I said, Azure is a very complex thing. It only made sense to be in there. Akila mentioned yesterday as well that we have a double rewards for XO, which is Exchange Online, and the Office 365 portal, which started yesterday or day before yesterday on the 1st of March, and it ends the 1st of May. Our other bounties, the maximum payout in Azure is $15,000 US, on Office 365 as well. And a little bit more about this double bounty in Exchange Online and the Office 365 portal. The domains receiving the double awards are portal.office.com, outlook.office365.com, and so on. You can find this on our website. And the payout range is everything between $1,000 for low bugs to $30,000 for high impact bugs, obviously. Duration, as I said, it started on the 1st of March and it will continue until the 1st of May this year. So if we talk about these past payouts, these are the lucky 7, these are the top 7 bugs which we had in Azure to date. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking like, Michael, a second ago you said the maximum payout is $15,000, and the top bug, we actually paid $24,000 for it. This was found during a double bounty program. The researcher found a bug, we awarded $12,000 times 2, that's basic math, and we gave the person $24,000. On top of that, that person joined Microsoft as well, so his signing bonus plus the bug bounty was a pretty good month for him, I think. So if you look at this, if you look at the general trend of this as well, it's very much, you can see a lot of things coming back, right? Our top bug, it's an authentication bypass. The other one is an authentication bypass as well. And then there's impersonation, again, about identity. Double URL decoding is again to steal authentication tokens. So if you have to get anything from this slide, it's that we pay quite a bit for authentication bugs. Identity and authentication is very important for us. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about them. 3 on these slides: the Azure Virtual Network gateway bypass, and 2 of the web bugs, and a little bit more of lower payouts, so you can see what sort of amount of money we pay for what type of bugs. So, number 1, the Azure Virtual Network gateway bypass. In Azure, we call it a VNet. What this VNet actually is, this virtual network, is your network logically in the cloud. So you can set up any private IP addressing with your own DNS servers if you want in the cloud. And the great thing, and this is not a marketing spiel, the great thing is you can have several networks with the same subnet, so you can test your applications in a test environment, production environment, without changing any IP addresses. Now, how you can connect to it, I mean, this runs in the cloud. How you can connect this, how you can extend this to your own on-premises data center, is one of the possibilities is a VNet gateway. It's a virtual network gateway. It's using something called a secure socket tunneling protocol, or SSTP. Now, how SSTP works, initially you set up a TLS tunnel over 443, which is HTTPS, so it'll break through most firewalls. Once that tunnel is set up, you actually do some SSTP state control packets, and with that you get access to the network. So somewhere something went wrong, and by sending a special crafted sequence of packets, you could skip the authentication step, which in plain English would actually means it would give access to a virtual network without any credentials at all, which was pretty bad. That's why we paid $13,000 and a bit dollars for finding this. So this is a very specific reverse engineering network packets back and forward. You run a lot of Wireshark and all these things just to see what's happening. Another bug where you can leak tokens is basically in OAuth, when you try to log into a certain website, there's something called a redirect URL, which is basically as soon as you're authorized a certain application, it'll send you back to a certain URL that you specify. Now, this URL obviously cannot be anything; it needs to be limited and so on. And the site, in our case, Microsoft, makes sure that this URL is what we expect it to be. Somewhere something went wrong and we weren't doing double encoding, which meant that somebody could give a URL which was doubly encoded. Now in URLs you can put a percentage sign and a hex value. So %2f, which you can, there's a laser, which you can see over there, just becomes a / and %25 actually becomes the percentage sign itself. The checking did more than one decoding. The value we gave back didn't. So the problem is you could actually have this as a valid domain giving back to us. Now, those who ever tried basic authentication on websites, you would know that everything, if you type in your browser HTTPS something at somethingelse.com, that something would actually just be seen as a username and sent to the second domain. So in this case, when you say send a token back to this URL, it doesn't mean it's going to account.windowsazure.com, which is a trusted domain from our standpoint. It actually went to evildomain.net, which is something that a hacker would own, for example. And that bug costed us $13,000 because with this you could steal access tokens and log in as someone else. To stay a little bit more in the land of OAuth, everyone has seen these. I'm sure everyone has run through some sort of OAuth authentication and authorization already. So basically what you have is you have any website or mobile application. It'll say login with a certain provider. It can be Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Twitter, GitHub, what have you. It would redirect you to a certain page. Say, do you allow this application to give access to your account or to your email or write on your timeline, any of these permissions? When you press yes, there's some magic happening in the back, and it will go back to the website, to your application saying welcome with your name and has access to what you said it would have access to. Somewhere where something went wrong is that in the application itself, the My App in this case, you could put JavaScript. And those who work in application security, you know that the second you can render JavaScript, it's a cross-site scripting vulnerability, a stored cross-site scripting vulnerability. And in this case, instead of showing an alert button, obviously, or instead of stealing cookies, you would just fake a click so you could have somebody authorize your application on your behalf. Basically, to make this into an evil thing, you could say, go to my website. It redirects you automatically to a screen what you would expect to click yes on. You don't click on it at all. JavaScript would do it for you, and basically the attacker would have access to a lot of things that you authorized. The problem is you didn't authorize it. JavaScript authorized it. Damage $12,000 for this bug for a cross-site scripting. Now, if you stick to cross-site scripting, don't take this as we paid $12,000 for cross-site scripting. A few months ago, there was a blind stored cross-site scripting as well. We paid a little bit less for this. It's a bit of gibberish. If you translate it down, it's a ping back to a certain domain. Those who use Burp Suite, which is your intercepting proxy, it has a feature to basically put a certain an image tag in a page, and it reaches back to you. Okay. And we're back. Sorry, I think Microsoft, the microphone wanted me to. The Microsoft stopped working. I'm sure we can edit the video, right? That's good. So anyway, with this, you had a cross-site scripting vulnerability, stored cross-site scripting vulnerability as well in one of the Azure domains. Basically, an attacker could give a certain input, which is sort of over here, and it could only be read by backend engineers. The problem is it's very difficult to find out if a backend engineer actually clicked on this, unless with some sort of callback to a custom domain. This thing worth $2,000. And in the end, this was very difficult to exploit because the backend URLs are only accessible from the Microsoft network. But in the end, it's a valid bounty. Then the more of the lower payouts. Microsoft obviously has a lot of websites, and we try to make sure we have this internal drive to make every site we have HTTPS, and every link on our website should be encrypted as well, should be HTTPS as well. Some of if one of our pages has an HTTP hyperlink hard-coded in there, then we basically, the problem is someone who does a man-in-the-middle could redirect traffic flow. Now, this doesn't cover every domain, but if you have a sensitive domain such as account.microsoft.com, which, as the name tells you, is something about your account at the Microsoft domain, this is eligible for a bounty as well. As I said, it's more of the lower payouts, so this is a $500 bug. Again, this is very subject to which domain it is, so don't start scanning all our domains and look for HTTP in there, because that's not gonna fly so well. So basically, what things do we look for, right? This is more or less your OWASP top 10 on the left. You have your cross-site scripting in there, your CSRF in there, certain authentication vulnerabilities, and so on and so on and so on. But the highest bounties are basically earned on authentication. I said this earlier, and I'll say it again. We have a multi-tenanted environment. If you're customer 1 and you can access customer 2, that's a bad thing, obviously. So anything authentication related is pretty bad and is something we'll pay quite well for. Privilege escalation as well, which is sort of from a vertical escalation point of view. We'll talk about that in a second. Cross-site scripting and cross-site request forgery are most of the bugs which we get and which have the high payouts as well. In scope domains, obviously, don't learn this by heart. It's on our website, but you can see that we have multiple, little over 50 domains. We have multiple domains which are in scope. Some of them even have subdomains as well. So you're talking about a lot of domains which are all included within the bug bounty program. There's a second slide on this as well. Obviously, everything excluding user-generated content is covered by it. If somebody creates a vulnerable ASP application and puts it on Azure, that's not part of the bug bounty program. That's just bad coding. It won't be covered by us. If there's something from the infrastructure itself, we will cover it. Now, we spoke about with everything that's in scope. What are the things that are out of scope? Obviously, the domains that are not in scope are by definition out of scope. But I put a little asterisk there as well, in the way of if you find a high vulnerability bug and the domain is not covered by us, report it to us anyway. Not from a thank you and we'll stop emailing you, but more as in if this is really a valid bug, we'll obviously reward you for it. User-generated content is out of scope as well. Any testing that you do outside of your own tenant is something we don't really like, because we don't have a staging environment. You're testing the real deal. You're on there with all our customers as well. If you do have a bug and you think it will affect other tenants, talk to us. We'll set up an extra tenant for you for testing. You can do that, so you don't target our real customers. Any volume-based denial of service is out of scope, which makes sense. You shouldn't really be DOSing Azure and then saying that you found something. And if you move beyond a proof of concept, for example, if you can read local files, just make sure you read local files, and that's the thing that you report. Don't try to look for passwords and then connect it to other things, because that will invalidate the bounty as well. Any phishing and social engineering attacks against customers or Microsoft employees are not allowed as well, which makes sense. How do we reward these things? We use the CVSS version 3 scoring to determine how much we actually pay out. We look at how strong the bug is, but we also look at how much is impacted. Does it affect users in the same tenant or across all tenants? Or even worse from our standpoint, does it affect all users in Microsoft? The bounty itself exists of a few things. There's a cash payout. We usually give MSDN credits as well, so you can download Microsoft software. And we give Azure credits as well, because we want to encourage you to use the platform a lot more. Quickly, what I talked about earlier. So, for example, we have a multi-tenanted system. There are two ways, if you talk really about authentication, where you can go wrong. You can have horizontal abuse and vertical abuse. Horizontal abuse, and the name sort of implies it, is when you're user A and you can become user B, for example, in the same application, or from one application jumping into another. Or one step higher, if you can go from one tenant and access it in the other tenant. Vertical abuse, as the name implies, is sort of the way up. Here, and it's a really poor choice of colors, now I can see when it's presented, you have anonymous users at the bottom. If you can, through some bug, become a user in an application, that's bad. And this is privilege escalation. Of course, the higher you go, Fabric admin, which are our sysadmins, if you can reach that level, that's really bad. But the higher you can go, the more impact your bug has and the more the payout will be. So how do we start all this? How do we get cracking, right? To access Azure, there's a few ways that you can do. One, if you have an MSDN or a Visual Studio subscription, you actually have Azure credits already. We give you $150 of credits per month that you can use to run VMs and whatnot. If you sign up for Azure, and the next bunch of slides will show you how to do that, you can use it for free for 1 month. We give you $200, which is roughly the equivalent of running 14 VMs or having 40 SQL databases or having 8 terabytes of storage or something in the cloud, and then you'll run out of the $200. Other things you can do with it is set up Redis caches, do machine learning, IoT, Azure Active Directory, and all those buzzwords. Once you run out of money, or once that month is over, you shouldn't stop testing. In fact, as long as you want, you can keep on using Azure Active Directory. You can create as many users as you want. You can still deploy, I think, up to 15 web and mobile applications. You can still do machine learning. You can do log analytics up to, I think, 500 megabytes per day. You can still set up your virtual networks and all those things, all for free for as long as you want. So how do we spin it up? Relatively simple. Initially, I was thinking of doing it live, but then with the internet, you're not always sure. Basically, if you go to azure.microsoft.com, you end up on our page. Or if you Google or use Bing, obviously, to go to Azure, you'll end up on our page. There's a big call to action in the middle there. You click on Start Free, and it'll get you to the next screen. A little bit of marketing thing. Basically, say the same thing I said before. There's $200 of free credit. You can try any services you want. This isn't like the old shareware from the 90s, and that shows you how old I am. But in the 90s, you'd have this function-limited shareware and so on. This isn't that. You can use anything you want for the credit. And once that credit is over, you pay nothing at the end. You can still do a few things for free. You can decide not to use it anymore, or better yet, you can start paying and use it for real. So what do? You click the Start Free button, gets you to the next screen. You obviously need to sign in. With this, you can sign in with a normal Outlook.com account or Hotmail account or a live account. Or if you have any work or school organization which is on AAD, when you're using Office 365, you can use that account as well. So you basically log in, plus Outlook accounts obviously are free as well. So you don't need to pay for anything like this as well. You keep your basic information, your name, where you are, your phone, potentially which company you work for. You have to give your phone number. And if you change country, for example, I live in Canada. If you see 200 Canadian dollars is not the same as a 200 US dollars. So if you say you live in Canada, it automatically changes to 250 Canadian dollars. So it's always the equivalent of 200 US dollars. You give your phone number, it sends you an SMS to make sure this phone number really belongs to you, sort of like an OTP thing. You give the code. Next thing, and this is where a lot of people are taking a step back a little bit, you have to give credit card information. Now, we're not going to charge you anything when we say it's free. It's really free. It's to reduce fraud. It's to make sure that you're really a person, that you have a credit card. You fill in the number. Obviously, I blacked it out here. You put your expiry date, a normal thing if you buy something online. And then after that, yeah, as I said a few times already, your card won't be charged. And in fact, it's not that when the month is over, we suddenly start charging you without telling you. You actually have to manually enable saying, okay, from now on, I want to start paying. So that's a manual step you need to do. So after that, you're ready. We obviously all read subscription agreements, so you're gonna read that. You're gonna agree to it, and then you're gonna sign up. And that's all it takes to get started with Azure. Basically, how it looks, it'll take a few minutes to set up your subscription, After that is done, there's a big green button in the middle. You click on that, and this is the portal that you end up. This is the same portal that all our customers use when they use Azure. As I said, there's no test bed, there's no demo environment. This is the real deal. From here, you can start using virtual machines, you can create databases, deploy applications, and what have you. If you want to figure out how much money you have left of this free $200, or how much days you have left in the month, basically click on the menu on the right. At the bottom, it says View My Bill. It's a few clicks away. Then at the bottom, you would click Account Center. One more click in a way that if you have more than one subscription, this is the free trial that you just set up. You click on that, and then finally you can see that you have 27 days left and 250 credits remaining. Now, why it says 27 days, I made these slides a week ago because I wanted to make sure I had the latest portal and so on, and I didn't want it to show old screens. February only has 28 days. So now it's March, you're happy, it's 31 days, make the most out of it. So once this is there, this is to see how much you have left, and that's it. We can close this again. In fact, the portal we were on earlier, there are two different portals. The one you saw earlier is the new one. We also have something called the old portal, which looks like this. It's a little bit less appealing to the eye, my opinion. The good thing about it is, well, you can still get to this to manage.windowsazure.com. That's sort of like the previous domain. We don't use it that much anymore. The great thing about it is that this is also covered in a bug bounty. So you're sort of talking about a code base that's a few years old, that's not, I'm not going to say actively developed anymore because that's wrong, but we're obviously pushing a lot of things to the new portal, but this is still part of the bug bounty. We're not going to say, well, no one uses this anymore, so it's not valid. This is there. So you can access Azure from a web point of view through two different ways. Let's move back to the new portal. We can add users to our tenants. You virtually create an Active Directory in the cloud. You can add users to it, and they can sign up. You can enable multi-factor authentication, so they get SMSs when they log on, and so on and so on. Aside from users, you can also add enterprise applications to it, web applications, mobile applications, whatever you want. But it's not just only through the portal. In fact, if you use Visual Studio and you write any ASP.NET application, you can easily push this to the cloud as well. You right-click on your project, you click Publish Web App, it asks you a few questions. Where do you want to do it, in your data center or in Azure? Next thing, it will actually pick up the same subscription that you have. It knows who you are when you're logged in automatically. From here, you can set up some extra things, what sort of machine size you want, what the name of your resource group would be, very Azure-specific things. Here, you can also see that once you run out of money, you can always still set up a free website without an issue. It's a free website hosted in a cloud running ASP. Now, why do I show Visual Studio in here? Because that slide with the Jackie Chan picture in the beginning, you have multiple applications talking to Azure. They're all using either the same or different APIs, but Visual Studio talks to Azure as well. PowerShell talks to Azure. Python scripts talk to Azure. This is a huge attack surface that people can abuse. So don't just only focus on browsers and so on. There's a lot more you can do with this. So that's basically how you spin up Azure. Now that we are running, what are the rules of the game? We sort of have this thing called CVD, the Coordinated Vulnerability Disclosure. We ask you to keep our customers secure, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have a job anymore, but maintain confidentiality of bugs only to MSRC. If you find a bug and you know someone who works in Microsoft, don't send it around too much, just interact with MSRC. They have a process that creates a case out of it, and that goes on there. If you want to talk about this bug, please wait until after it's patched and after it's fixed. And if there's an on-premises component that the patches have been released, we actually recommend, or we actually ask that you wait for 30 days so customers actually have the time to install these things. Never publish any exploit code. POC code is fine if you send it to us. Never say like this is how you hack every Hotmail account in the world. And we are happy to provide any data, any technical data to talks, white papers, or blogs, or anything that you want. So that's basically how you spin up Azure. Now that we are running, what are the rules of the game? We sort of have this thing called CVD, the Coordinated Vulnerability Disclosure. We ask you to keep our customers secure, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have a job anymore, but maintain confidentiality of bugs only to MSRC. If you find a bug and you know someone who works in Microsoft, don't send it around too much, just interact with MSRC. They have a process that creates a case out of it, and that goes on there. So to take actions, go to aka.ms/bug bounty for a current list of all the active bug bounties. Azure is one of them. Office 365 is one of them as well. This page pretty much links you to all the rest, all the domains that are in scope, how we pay out our bugs, what is in scope, what is out of scope, the denial of service, and all these things. Identify the bounty you wanna go after. So you sign up to Azure, you sign up to Office 365, and so on. Report your findings to secure@microsoft.com. As I said, they have a process that tracks everything and manages it properly. The better you describe a bug, and if you provide a POC, or some people when they can't really describe it well, they send a video with it as well. Give some information about it. The more information you give us, the higher the quality report is, the larger bounty you get. The more impact it has on Microsoft and Microsoft customers, the higher of a bounty you get. Obviously, give a name and an email address where we can reach you back at. In the end, we need to know who we're paying. Encrypt it with our public key if you have any exploit code or a POC. And for any eligible bounty cases, obviously get paid. So as a quick recap, we spoke about how to sign up to Azure, the high payout bounties we had in the back as well, the list of targets where you can go to, and how to file bugs. If you want to reach out to me, you can email me at Hendry@microsoft.com, or I'll be here for the next 2 days as well. Just come and grab me. And are there any questions? I know I start speaking fast towards the end. That's typically me, but are there any questions?
Corporate as well as whatever strategically hosted to Microsoft Azure.
Yeah.
So what you have talked about the team related to individual will go and how to activate that type of setup in a corporate to give a corporate login for finding the bug and getting the not getting earning money but to fix it up, solve the system.
So something that we're planning to do is, and it's actually already active, it's called the Azure Penetration Testing Program for customers. If you are a customer with Microsoft, I assume you have a TAM or an account manager that you're working with, talk to them about it. They should have details. So there's an online form already on the Azure side where you can go enroll your company, inform your TAM that you want to conduct a penetration testing effort, and these are your domains, this is the user-generated content, this is how you would like to go about doing it. And MSRC, we anyway get looped into working with them, but we're more on the engineering side, and we don't work with end customers, and we work with our TAMs to give us this information. But that program has already been set up to enable customers to conduct penetration testing on Azure. If you want additional information, I can pass you my business card, and we can definitely talk offline on that. Yes.
So your TAM can directly work with the corporate.
So there is, the TAMs have documentation on how they need to, what documentation they need to provide external customers in order to work with us. It's essentially an online form on Azure where you need to fill it out, inform Microsoft that you are conducting this penetration testing on your Azure instances so that we don't shut you down if we think there's some sort of abuse going on, and give us the domains. The TAM should be able to guide you through the entire process, and if not, they should have the training documentation, so they should be able to find the resources to do that. And I'm here for the next, Michael and I here, Swami's also here, we're all from Microsoft for the next 3 days. Hit us up, we're more than happy to discuss this further.
Can you repeat the question as well
Yeah.
for the recording?
How long does it take Microsoft to patch a bug? It depends. It genuinely depends. Some bugs, it depends on the priority, it depends on the severity of the bug, it depends on the quality of report that the researcher has submitted us. And that's why we always ask researchers to submit high quality bugs. We try to... I can't answer that. It just completely depends on the type of vulnerability. Each engineering group is different, each product is different. We try to patch the bug as fast as possible to ensure customers are secure. And it's a holistic thing, because when we receive bugs, it's not just go do one particular fix and that's that. We do variant analysis for all the vulnerabilities. And Swami, in his talk tomorrow in the Windows mitigations, will talk about how we use all this information, variant analysis, work with different engineering teams to do a very holistic patch, because we want to ensure that no one can just bin diff what patch you've taken and then it basically becomes moot, all the work that we've done. But in short, it depends. I'm sorry.
Service catalog from the business, from the business perspective, from the technical service catalog perspective, we should have the service definitions well defined in line with the turnaround time for specific vulnerability or
Yeah,
bug.
so we definitely are in line with industry standards. GPZ and a few other folks externally have set what the industry standards will look like, and we're in line for all of those. We ensure that as soon as we get information for vulnerabilities, it's not like we sit on them. We immediately take action and make sure the patches are released for end customers in a holistic way as soon as possible.
Oh, that's as early as possible. I understand, but do we have the defined SLAs for that?
I think your technical account manager should be able to give you additional information on that, but I won't be able to speak to that here.
All right.
Okay. Just a second.
Time for one question.
In your slide, you have said like we should not disclose POC in public, but recently I have came to know that Google has disclosed Windows Edge and Internet Explorer vulnerabilities, exploits. So, any thought on that? Like, what Microsoft has done for them?
Any thoughts on that? My diplomatic thought is it didn't affect Azure, so I don't know. Yeah, I think that's the right answer. Yeah, I'm here to talk about Azure. One more, hopefully an easier question. That microphone is better.
So my question is basically related to Azure, and I want to know that what are the different services that Azure is providing for handling the incident response. So in case some incident happens on our Azure infrastructure, so how as a company we should go for it to look for what are different instances or different services we should look into it.
I don't understand exactly what you...
Like in AWS, we have CloudTrail and CloudWatch on different logs where we can look into what are different authenticated, different actions has been taken by the attacker. But what irrespective of that, what are the different services that Azure is providing for looking into unauthenticated access? Different detection or different services that anything.
I don't know exactly if you, and I know that this is a very bad answer to give, but if you go on the Azure website, you see all the security offers. We do detection for scanning, for password abuse and all these things as well. So we have those things built in. The bad answer I can give you is I'm on the offensive side, so I don't know exactly what Azure is all giving to automatically present this. Akila looks angry at me, and I'm sure she's gonna.
No, I think what I would recommend is the Microsoft India team is here, and a lot of them are the folks working with the customers, and they work, and there's also a bunch of folks on the marketing side. They inherently know a lot of the information that customers will use for detections. So I would recommend speak to Microsoft India at the Microsoft booth. They have a bunch of TSPs there to help answer that question.
Is it a product, or I'm just talking about the basic services that a company should look into?
A lot of that is baked into the service. And then as I think there are different tiers of Azure, as your company decides to adopt a few tiers, they have different detections that get baked into Office 365 and Azure, depending on what you end up purchasing.
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, we definitely have a huge booth here, and there are lots of folks from Microsoft India. So if you have specific questions about how your technical account managers can help you, or specifically on product, please feel free to reach out to them.
Unfortunately, we are out of time for more questions.
Sorry?
We are out of time.
Cool. Thank you very much. As Adam was saying right before it, Right here. This is the passphrase that you need for the CTF to get your extra 25 credits. Perfect. So, thank you.